Hi everybody, this is Julissa. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. And if you're listening in the podcast, thank you so much for listening. I had to make this video. God been putting this in my heart to speak about this and and it's almost like an advice that I'm giving. And it's so crazy. I just came from the fabric store. I feel like I've been driving all day, even though I've been working since 4 a.m. today. But I'm like, I need to speak about this. And I know it's a different type of content that you normally hear or see here in my YouTube channel, but I needed to speak about this because you see it happen so often. And going back to what I was saying in my previous video, how people don't think of the consequences of the things that they do, right? A couple years back, I used to work at this place, and um I noticed something that I didn't like, and like I saw older women who were basically married with grandkids, basically, set for life in that sense of, having a partner, having a marriage, having kids, and even having grandkids. But they were so involved into advising or giving their opinion to single men in the office, right? And I was like, oh my goodness, if the man is weak, right? If the man is weak in his emotion, he's a younger guy, things like that, he's gonna lead to advice that makes sense, right? And let me tell you something, and that's what I'm coming from about this whole video, right? This whole episode. We are so proud of our opinion that we think it is right. Having an opinion is okay. It's our human choice. It's our human what do you call it? Like, it's our human thing. Like, we are all humans, so we all have different opinions about certain things in life, right? And a lot of the times, we believe that our opinion, what we think about a situation is right? It's the certainty, it's the truth. And you have to understand, an opinion is just an opinion, right? um it's almost like, when somebody recommends to you to eat at this new restaurant, and they're like, I was there last week, it was amazing, the service was great, the food was amazing. And then you go, and because you got a good recommendation from somebody, right? They got a great feedback about it, and then you go and you have a horrible experience, right? And I think in life we need to learn that not everything is going to work out the same for everybody, right? Just like not every medication works the same for everybody, not everything is gonna work out the same. I remember when I graduated college, everybody were like, "Oh, I know somebody who went to school for fashion too, and this is what they did," right? And I was like, "I'm already doing that, like, and it's not working, right? I'm already sending resumes." And then they look at you like, you're not doing enough, right? You're not getting results because you're not doing enough. And we need to understand that everybody has a different journey, right? God has a different plan for everyone. Not We don't have to follow the footprint of what somebody else did, because everybody is gonna have a different journey, right? Um, just because, like, a person or a family, you know, their kids in that family got an internship right out of college and you didn't, that doesn't mean that, you're not good enough. It means that there are other plans for you, right? um and it's just so crazy because, like I said, going back to how much people value what they think, and they value, and they want to enforce it on people. And some people are so like, almost like there's like a pridefulness. I'm not, a lot of people won't be able to relate to this. You see people like, I'm thinking right now, what I'm thinking right now about that episode of The King of Queens, which is my favorite TV show. And I think they had a friend, and she's talking about making empanadas, and I think she's like a famous actress, and she's telling them, no, you gotta go to Argentina, right? Because she's so obsessed with empanadas, and that's how she learned how to make them. And it's like, no, you have to do it. It's almost like, it was like, because I had such a great experience, you need to do the same thing, even though, like, she's telling it to another character, and they're like not really interested, or they don't think about going over there, right? And we need to be so careful about enforcing what we think it is the best, or like the truth, or like our opinion. I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like, um if somebody comes to me and say, hey, what do you think I should do if I want to present a collection at New York Fashion Week? Like, I can give you advice, but at the end of the advice, I'm gonna say there's so many ways that you can approach this. Don't just go like with what I did, right? Because maybe other doors will open for you that perhaps were not open for me, right? Or haven't opened for me yet. But I think a lot of people, they're so set in what they think. They're so almost like if there's a pridefulness to what they think, and this is it, and that's what you should do, and that's it, right? And we need to understand that nobody, like, there is a God that has a different plan for your life, right? And we have to be so careful about enforcing. And a lot of the times it's our human nature to expect logic, right? And what makes sense. I feel good about this, right? Um, it's almost like, when I went to get my car, I'm like, I was so into having this particular car, right? And I'm like, I'm going there and that's the car. I'm so like persistent. I'm like, I'm going there and that's the car I want. I don't want to hear from anybody. And then I went, and when I actually saw, I'm like, I don't really like it. And it's almost like, you need to understand, like, sometimes we're so set in what we think, and we want to make a sense in our mind that we ask other people's for opinion, right? And advice, which is totally fine, right? It's totally fine for that. But you need to understand that you can ask for advice, but like, be human enough to give yourself some type of, um I don't let me see if I can say this. Be um be independent enough to give yourself to be like, I'm gonna think about what everybody said, but at the end of the day, right, I'm gonna give it to God. I'm gonna see what God wants me to do, because you are entitled to do that, right? And some people are so weak into making decisions that they just want to please the crowd. And right, even though, let's just say, God gives you a revelation, right? And God gives you a revelation, and you're asking God for advice, and God gives you a revelation. And how can you have a revelation, and after you have a revelation from the creator of the world, right, who holds this world in his hand, and you're gonna have that revelation and have some type of confirmation, right? Because when God gives you revelation, there's also a confirmation, right? And then you're gonna take it to somebody because you think they are in this level in your mind, because let's just say they attend church, right? And you have to understand, a lot of people do things out of routine, right? A lot of people do things out of routine. That doesn't mean that they're on their everybody has a different relationship with God. That's what I'm getting at, right? People, we base so much on what we look from the outside, right? um we think that people, just because you see them in church every Sunday, they're like, they don't do certain things, right? And that's where the shock comes in, right? You get so surprised when you see somebody who is so devoted to serving, let's just say, and then you hear something about them and you're like, oh, wow, that's crazy. I can't believe they do that. But you have to understand that we're all in a different process, right? We all have our different relationship with Jesus Christ. There are sins that everybody battles with, right? And we need the grace of God every single day of our lives, right? And when you have a revelation from the Lord, right? When you have a revelation from like the whole gospel of Jesus Christ, the whole gospel from the beginning of Jesus Christ is about people who didn't look like the part, right? They don't look the part. They say to Jesus, isn't this the carpenter's son, right? Like what? Like it? Don't we know this kid? Like we know this kid from the name. We know his family, his brothers and sisters. They're here. What do you mean? He's like preaching and doing miracles and do all these things, right? Um, it's always about people who didn't look the part. But then when we have a revelation from the Lord, what I'm getting at is like a lot of the times it's not gonna make sense. Probably 99% of the time, it's not gonna make sense, right? When I God put that desire in me to do a fashion show in Times Square last year, I'm like, what? Like, how am I gonna get to do that? But it was such a strong feeling of you have to be in Times Square. The fashion show has to be there. It's almost like it has to be there. And I don't know what the plan was. I didn't know how I was gonna get there. And if you follow what I do in my channel for a while, you know that last year I did have the fashion show in Times Square. Just how God put that desire in me, right? But in the beginning, probably 3 weeks before that show happened, I wasn't even sure it was actually going to happen. When I started, I'm like, I feel like God is calling me to, of course, New York, but specifically, He wanted Times Square. I'm like, how am I going to have a fashion show in Times Square? And still this day, I still think, I'm like, when I was not promoting, because I tend to post what I'm doing like later on, like a day or two before it actually happens. Um, but I remember doing a promo for it to put it on the website so that people know that, if they wanted to attend, that's available. And I'm like, I can't believe this is actually happening. Like, but that's like, if I would have been me, right? And I remember getting my collection ready. And people were reaching out, hey, you want to do Fashion Week? This is how much it is. And I'm like, I'm going to hold on to signing up for any shows right now. Because I know God wants me to do it in Times Square. So I was holding for Times Square and I was emailing there's a Times Square Fashion Week. That's what I did, right? And they were like so busy, they weren't getting back to me. I'm telling you, 3 weeks before that show, probably like so maybe 2 weeks before, I was like, I can't believe I still don't know this is actually gonna happen. And then I was losing the faith for a little bit. I'm like, I'm just gonna go with whatever other show already reached out to me because I already have a collection. I got myself prepared for this. And now these people are taking so long because they're doing other fashion weekend. They're like, no, we didn't forget about you. We're so busy with this other fashion. We will get back to you. And they eventually reply and, we signed the contract and all of that. And then the show happened, right? I'm like, this is the guy wanted me here. And like I said, months before, right? Um, I didn't I didn't know how that was going to come to be because in my mind it didn't make sense. But when God is giving you a revelation for something, when God is calling you to do something, you can't be like, imagine if I would have gone to people and be like, hey, so I feel like God wants me to be to have a show in Times Square. They're like, oh, that's for celebrity people, like, you need a lot of money for that because people, um you have to understand that revelation was not given to 100 people, like the 100 people that in your circle. That whatever it is that God is calling you to do, when He gives you a revelation and a confirmation, He's giving it to you. It's not for you to go and grab everybody's mouth and be like, what do you think? It's not going to make sense to them, right? And how can you be so coward to do that to the Creator, to your Father, to your Abba Father, who's saying, this is what I want you to do, and you're gonna go and value the opinions of other people, and you need to understand, because they didn't get that revelation, they're gonna base their opinion on logic. And that brings me back to saying the gospel of Jesus Christ has never been based on people who look the part, right? When Jesus came, they didn't expect. They said, "What good comes out of Jerusalem?" Right? They expected this king to come with red carpet and in full like throne and things like that. And look where he was born, right? And then we have a revelation from the creator of the universe, and we're gonna go grab everybody's ear and like see what you, and they're gonna be like, you heard wrong, you don't have the means to do that. That person doesn't look like that person, that that that's not for you. You probably heard wrong, right? And how can you do that to your own self? Because when God gives you revelation about something and confirms that thing to you, how can you do that and still be like, you know, people are gonna be, and then you're gonna hear what people saying. You're like, yeah, it makes sense what you're saying. You're probably right. When people say that to you, you're probably right, right? And then you have to understand too, people's opinion are just that, they are just an opinion. And what happens with opinions, they tend to change, right? Sometimes you like, man, this is my let's talking about like something like as simple as a restaurant. This is my favorite restaurant, right? And then you go back for a couple 2 times and you're like, I'm not coming here again because I hate, like I hate they changed management, they changed some of the service. I don't want to come here ever again. And you're thinking to yourself, wait a second, beginning of the month everything was great. Now I'm like, I'm never coming back here again. So that's what it is with opinion. That's why you can base life's decision based on what people like. It makes sense. You're probably right. That makes a lot of sense. The gospel, when God is calling you to something, you're not gonna look the part according to the human eyes, because this is coming from above. This is the creator of the universe who's calling you to do something, right? Look what happened, like when Mary got that revelation from the angel, right? God sent another angel to speak with Joseph because he knew it wasn't going to make sense to Joseph, right? He was trying to leave her. Like, what is she doing now? Like, she's going to kill my reputation. What do you mean she's pregnant? She's cheating on me, like, whatever, right? But because of that, God reveals that to him too. What was going to happen, that she was going to have, she's going to give birth to Jesus. So, what I'm saying is, you have to understand, we're living in the days of reviews, feedback, and opinions. And I remember thinking to myself, when I saw that older lady that I used to work with, this person is all set. Like, she already has kids, grandkids, and marriage for years and whatever, right? And she's so prideful in what she thinks about other people, and she values her opinion so much to this standard of the of you gotta do what I tell you type of thing, that she's influencing this young man to make life decisions. And if you're so weak that you get so influenced so easily, then you're gonna make a life decision based on somebody else's logic. And you need to understand, right? Not everything, you know, not everything is as what it seems, right? People assume a lot of stuff about other people that they don't know. Okay, I can post something on Instagram right now, right? I can post like a selfie, let's just say, and people can assume 3 million things about me, and probably 99% of that will be negative, because assumptions are like that. Assumptions are never positive. They're like 1% positive, right? If somebody sees you living like I said, I was at the fabric store and there's a liquor store right next to Joanne's, right? And I'm like, if somebody sees me, like, if people that know me, right, like, and they know I create clothing, and they see me coming out of, probably because I was crossing the street near the liquor store, I'm like, if probably see me crossing the street, they're probably gonna think, oh, you see, I told you, she's a Christian. We look at her at the liquor store. They're not even though like Joanne's is right next to it, people will always assume the negative, right? And the thing with assumptions is that, like I said, they're always wrong, right? And they're negative into the extreme. And the thing with that is, like, when people put you in a box already, they don't even give you the opportunity to get to know you. Um, And then they're gonna take that opinion about you that can change, right? Like I said, opinions change. And they're gonna enforce that into somebody so that they can look at you differently. And let me tell you something, if you don't know what that is manipulation and witchcraft, right? When somebody is so strong about, just because there's something about that person that they don't like, right? And they're just gonna say, um, God told me so and so, right? And they're gonna be like, oh no, not her. And if you're weak in your in yourself, that if you're a person who gets influenced very easily, you're gonna get influenced by people who are just basing their advice on negative thoughts about somebody without even knowing them. And how sad it is that people tend to do that. Like I said, how sad it is that, instead of saying, hey, if that's what God told you, man, like that's what God told you, like that's what God said, right? Like, who am I to even come against that? Like, you're coming against what the creator of the world said to somebody. Like, that's, you need to go, you're gonna answer that one day. If that doesn't put the fear of the Lord in you, like, I don't know what you're waiting for, really. That's very deep right there. To somebody comes to you and say, I got a revelation from the Lord about this and the other, and then you're like, you heard wrong, because it just doesn't make sense. God will never tell you to do that, right? God will never tell you to build an ark, right? God will never tell you to go to do this, right? God will never say that they're gonna say so many things that are not that are gonna make sense to you, and you're probably right, because he, you know look, this guy heard about making an ark, and it hasn't rained in 10 years. Did he really hear God, right? We're gonna base it on human logic, but it is so sad that things like that happen. I'm just saying, guys, this is why I was so led to make this video. Be careful who you are influencing based on what your human logic is. I think when somebody comes and say to you, hey, I heard this from the Lord, that should trump every other opinion about any other person, any other, person in this world, because that's the creator who told you that. Even if it doesn't look the part, even if that person doesn't look like it, okay? I don't understand how people can be so weak like that. And they're gonna base it on human logic, and then they rather do that than be obedient to what the Lord said. But anyways, thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast and watching on YouTube. Let me know if you experience something similar. Have a great day, everybody. God bless.